Thank you, everybody. I'm back again, but no panel of friends or cue cards this time, so wish me luck. I don't have those, but I do have an interesting topic, at least, or I think it's an interesting topic. And that's the idea of redefining rebates. We've had a through line through all of the presentations today, a common theme of change, whether that be technological change that Georgia spoke about earlier with AI, whether it be economic change that Ben just touched on. Andrew also framed it beautifully at the start of the day, talking about volatility and uncertainty. And it's all of these factors that have got me thinking about the rebates of the future. And it's my theory, my suggestion, that the rebates that we know and love today, that are delivering value for us and our trading partners, won't necessarily stand the test of time. And so it's upon us, the people in the room, rebate experts, rebate professionals, to really guide that process of rebates being redefined. If we sit back passively and just let that happen, then there's every chance that our rebates won't deliver the value that we need them to going forwards. But whenever we try to make changes to rebates, introduce a new strategy or just tweak our existing strategy, whether we be on the buy side or the sell side, I think there's one common obstacle that we come up against, and that's the perceptions of others. Rebates tend to come with baggage. People have their experiences and they have their preconceived ideas about what a rebate is. And these preconceived ideas can be a real obstacle to that success in making change when it comes to rebates. And so we know what our mission is. We want to redefine rebates, but we need to bring people who have negative perceptions of rebates along with us. So what's the first step on this journey of redefining rebates? For me, it's asking a simple question: what is a rebate? Now, you may not have expected to be asked this question today. You think maybe it should be self-evident. We're at a pricing and rebates conference, a room full of pricing and rebates professionals. I have rebates in my job title, so if I can't answer this one, I probably shouldn't be on this stage. But it's not as straightforward as it might first seem. It's quite a layered question, quite a complex question, quite a murky definition. We see mechanisms out there with the name rebate, but they don't really operate like a rebate. And then on the other side of the coin, we see things that don't get given the name rebate. Perhaps they're called a discount, but they operate in the way that we think a rebate should. So when I ask myself this question, instinctively, there are a few criteria that come to mind. I think of a rebate as firstly being retrospective. I think that one's a tap-in, uncontroversial. It comes after the transaction, settled later than the purchase or the sale. My second criteria that comes to mind is that rebates are conditional. There's some kind of behavior, some performance, a target, a threshold that needs to be met before the rebate becomes payable. And my last criteria is that because of that conditionality, rebates are mutually beneficial. Both trading partners get something out of a rebate. They're win-win. But as I say, the definition is a bit murky, and so just for a bit of corroboration, just to be sure, and as a millennial myself, there's only one place you go when you have a question and you need a definition. So I asked Google, what is a rebate? And Google seems to confirm my instincts. We're talking about a delayed sales incentive, so delayed, retrospective. An incentive, something enticing the customer to provide that mutual benefit. But this isn't a Google conference. Other search engines are available. And so for a second source, what does Bing say? What is a rebate according to Microsoft? And again, we seem to be confirming that initial view that rebates, they come after the sale, they're retrospective, they're an incentive, and Bing even goes as far as to suggest some of those mutual benefits for the supplier. So the customer takes a saving, the supplier expects a mutual benefit, perhaps boosting sales or customer loyalty. I recognize that it's 2025 and we've spoken a lot about AI today, so we should probably consult 2025's stalwart of knowledge and accuracy and ask ChatGPT, what is a rebate? And once again, the rebate definition that I gave at the start seems to be holding up. We're talking about something that comes after a purchase. There are agreed upon conditions. Once those conditions are met, then mutual benefit flows to both parties. And so we're left here with our definition of what is a rebate, something that is retrospective, conditional, and mutually beneficial. And it's that bottom bullet point that I like to focus on. Not many things in life are truly mutually beneficial. Not many things are truly win-win, where both parties walk away happy with the outcome. And that's why I think everyone loves rebates. Of course they do. They're mutually beneficial. How could you not love rebates? Interesting fact for you to take home to your family and friends, actually. That image there, we've done some research, that's the typical response to hearing the word rebates. People just go, yes. So when you're wandering around today, don't be surprised if spontaneously people having conversations are just going, yes. And whilst we're riding this wave of positivity, we've established that everyone loves rebates. I've spotted a familiar face in the crowd. Keith, can you tell us, why do you love rebates?
I don't know whether I should do that or a little semi pump. That's going to sound okay. So I'm going to be pragmatic and say I mostly love rebates. So to be consistent, and I've spoke about this before at a conference with Enable, mostly I love rebates because they're such a material part of profitability. I work in building materials, and in a lot of cases it's 2, 3, 4 times the profit that most businesses bring in. The 2 caveats I would give, and even someone with your financial wizardry, Kevin, is I've got to know where they are and make sure I can account for them. I don't want to be so bloody clever, and I've been that guy. I've been a procurement guy that's done buying deals for forever, and I've invented stuff just to hit a number, and therefore, you can't add them up. And I think someone referenced on stage, about people that have left and been off, and then you can't work out the deals, and it's really difficult. So caveat number 1, don't be so clever that you've made a rebate up that no one can add up. The second caveat is if it gets in the way of people making really good decisions. So again, you see that all too often in building materials where it stops. I think, again, someone referenced this morning, you need to ring somebody and have a conversation to make a decision on whether you take an order. Again, if rebates get in the way of people making really good decisions, that's not okay. So 2 caveats. In the main, let's go half a fist pump, unless it gets in the way of complexity and making good decisions.
Appreciate that, Keith. Thank you very much. You hear more from Keith on one of the panels later. Great insights. You've thrown a little bit of a spanner into the works of my presentation. It turns out that not everyone loves rebates all of the time. And I suppose that's the time, this is the moment where I need to come clean and say, I've probably over-egged the pudding so far. We have a slide up there that says everyone loves rebates. And clearly that's not true all of the time. And I'd like to take a bit of a poll just to get the consensus in the room, just by raising your hands. I'll offer you 3 options. Firstly, it will be people like Keith that are pretty pragmatic about it. They see the value in rebates, but they don't love them. There are certain things that they would improve about them if they could. Second, we'll have people like myself, people that love rebates, complete positivity, nothing wrong with them at all. And then lastly, just for completeness, I don't expect any hands, but we'll just see if there's anyone in the room who's completely negative about rebates. So that first group, people like Keith, see the positives, but there are also some drawbacks with rebates. Any hands? That's most of the room, isn't it? People like me love rebates, love everything about them. I have some friends, excellent. Only a couple, but maybe we need to edit the slide. Not everyone loves rebates, but I'm not on my own at least. And lastly, anyone that feels entirely negative about rebates, their experiences have led them to that point. Good, no one needs to be kicked out. Excellent. So, as I say, we're not talking about the real world when we say everyone loves rebates. We know from our own experiences that bad rebates are out there, and bad ways of managing rebates are out there as well. And people get jaded by those experiences. And what we end up with is 3 camps: rebate lovers, rebate skeptics, and rebate haters. And one thing that's very apparent now after seeing George's presentation earlier, I need a bit of help with my prompts for AI-generated images, but hopefully you agree it serves a purpose. These are our camps, our rebate lovers, our rebate skeptics like Keith, and our rebate haters. And what's the relevance to redefining rebates of all of this? Well, if we're to be successful redefining rebates, if we're going to push rebates forward in that ever-changing world and make sure that they keep delivering value, then we need to get the skeptics and the haters on board. Some of us in the room are skeptics. We need to kind of understand where those feelings come from and how we overcome them to push rebates forward. And we only do that by exploring the perceptions that they have, the points of view that they share with us. Rebate lovers like myself might tell you that the rebate is the only way to stay profitable in their particular channel. It's the difference between success and failure, between profit and loss. They also describe rebates as a flexible tool for innovating with their partners, or a source of mutual value, that win-win idea, collaboration, mutual benefit. We also hear customers and clients telling us that the rebate is the glue that binds their trading relationships together. It's the reason that they get round the table on a monthly or quarterly basis to discuss their joint business plan, how things are going, how successful and how sustainable that trading relationship is. And they might also tell us that they're a vital tool for protecting margin. But in the interest of balance, we also need to understand and acknowledge the views of the skeptics. Rebate skeptics will talk about rebates as a trust builder. So when you do them right, you build trust with your trading partners. Do them wrong, the whole thing falls down. I think we all know examples of trading relationships. We'll have anecdotes in mind that were broken by a bad rebate or a rebate dispute that caused that wedge between the two partners. Others talk about visibility and transparency. We touched on it on the panel earlier. There's an opportunity there and there's potential in rebates, but if we can't see the wood for the trees, then we can't realize that value. People also talk about complexity. Rebates grow arms and legs over time. They have this habit of kind of losing their initial focus and becoming too complicated to be useful. And then also the skeptics, they talk about rebates that aren't optimized or not fully understood, and therefore the true value isn't unlocked. And then lastly, the rebate haters, for complete balance. These are ones, fortunately not in the room, but who are going to be the trickiest to win over when it comes to redefining rebates. We hear this a lot. They talk about rebates as a cost of doing business, a necessary evil, something they have to pay out from that sell side, but they don't see any benefit for doing so. Others talk about internal friction between sales and finance teams, or maybe procurement and finance teams. Others see rebates as a compliance risk waiting to happen. If you're operating in jurisdictions where the regulators are taking a close look at rebates, that fear and that risk is ever present. We can probably all resonate with the fourth one there, an administrative burden. Rebates do add an admin burden to our lives. They require more resources, more time than, say, a discount does. But in my view, the upside is worth it. But if you only ever see the burden and not the upside, maybe you fall into this camp. And then lastly, we hear from rebate haters that the rebate is just an unnecessarily complex way of pricing products. So clearly, on our mission to redefine rebates, we have a pretty major obstacle. Some of the perceptions in the room and some of these perceptions on screen. If we're to be successful in redefining rebates, we need to face up to these head on and address them as we go. And it's for this purpose that we in the advisory team at Enable have devised this framework. A framework of 4 types of rebates. Now, we're pretty confident that every rebate that you might find out there in the wild can fit into one of these 4 categories. And we recommend doing this, whether you're on the buy side or the sell side, looking at the rebates that you're dealing with and working out where they fall into each of these types of rebate. Having done that, you're in a much better position to understand the types of perceptions that might be inspired by your rebates, which puts you in an even better position to then go and redefine rebates, bringing along those skeptics and those haters with you. So at a high level, I'll just define what each of these are. So zero-sum rebates. this is a story of dominance. We're talking about a dominant customer who has all of the bargaining power in the relationship, and they essentially force through an additional saving in the form of the rebate. The supplier feels compelled to give that saving through fear of losing the business. The margin protection rebate, that's defined by a defensive stance, but not defensive in a bad way, but one where we're looking to hold on to what we've got. Keep that margin, not let it leak away. The incentive rebate, those are defined by behaviors, by a customer earning the rebate from their supplier. And finally, go-to-market rebates. These are all about having access to more of the market, a bigger slice of the pie for that trading relationship to go after. And we're going to go into these in a little bit more detail just to demonstrate what we're dealing with, and we're going to do that with the tried and tested format, the much loved format of a pricing waterfall. In each case, we'll start on the left-hand side with a simple scenario, a list price of 100, a discount of 5, taking us down to an invoice price of 95, and in the absence of any rebate, our pocket price or our net price is also 95. On the right-hand side, we'll see what happens when we introduce each of these types of rebates. So the zero-sum rebate we're looking at first, and the key here is that the pocket price is decreased from 95 to 90.25 as a result of the additional saving. And as I said at the top, the supplier feels compelled to offer this rebate. They don't want to lose the business, but they don't expect any upside from this. Their customer is so dominant, so powerful in that relationship that they just have to sacrifice a bit of their margin and give it away. And bringing this back to our perceptions, I think it's pretty obvious why this could breed some rebate haters and rebate skeptics. If your association with the word rebates is having this done to you by your customers all the time, then rebates are going to be a pretty dirty word for you. We move on then to the margin protection rebates, our second type of rebate. Same scenario on the left-hand side, but there's a big difference to that waterfall on the right-hand side. The big difference being that our pocket price is actually unchanged before and after we introduce the rebate. And I hear those perceptions from the previous slide of the skeptic saying, this is unnecessarily complex. We started at 95, we ended at 95. Why have we made life more difficult for ourselves by introducing a rebate? Well, this rebate's pretty close to my heart. We've heard already, we've got other people from the construction industry in today. This is very prevalent in the builders merchants where I used to work. The key here isn't really the pocket price. We're more looking at the invoice price. And what we're doing here with the rebate is manipulating that invoice price upwards because that is the price that the operators in our branches see. And that's the price that they use to calculate a selling price. If they apply a markup of, say, 20% to the invoice price on the left of 95, there's a risk they're going to end up with a sales price that is too low, and we're just going to be giving away margin to our customers. If, on the other hand, when we use the rebate, they see an invoice price that is elevated to that level of 99.5, their markup of 20% will get them to a more appropriate selling price, and we won't be giving away that margin. Of course, a benefit for the distributor in that sense, but also a mutual benefit for the manufacturer as well. Their products aren't being devalued out there in the market by being sold off too cheap. We move on to the incentive rebates. Again, same starting point. And the eagle-eyed among you will notice that that price waterfall on the right-hand side looks identical to the zero sum. And you probably remember that I spoke quite negatively about those zero-sum rebates. So why am I more positive about these? It's all down to the fact that that rebate, in the case of an incentive, is conditional. There's that behavior that needs to be met, that performance that needs to be delivered that earns the rebate for the customer. It's not just given away on every transaction. It's a more strategic, deliberate giving away of margin. The supplier's happy to have a reduced pocket price because they've received something in return for that, whether it be volume or a better mix of products, whatever it might be. Now, these might still inspire the more negative feelings. If these are done badly, they can create rebate skeptics and rebate haters. If suppliers are setting targets that are just unachievable, customers might turn around and think, they're not serious about giving me that saving. I don't like these rebates. And then lastly, our go-to-market rebates. Once again, we have the same outcome on the right-hand side, same pricing waterfall. And I think that just goes to demonstrate the subtleties between the differences of these rebate types. The differences are fairly minor on paper, but what they mean for the trading relationship is very significantly different. Unlike the conditional incentive rebate, we're creating a fund here, a pot of money for mutually agreed activity. So we might be talking a co-op marketing fund to run joint promotions in order to try to access a bigger slice of the market. We might be talking special pricing arrangements that we heard about earlier. Again, using that fund for a mutually agreed activity, helping us as a trading relationship to land that big contract. So bringing this all back together, you can see that I have categorized off those zero sums on the left-hand side. And you might think that's just a difference between a category of ones that I like and a category of ones that I don't like so much. But there's more to it than that. I think a better way of classifying this is looking at the zero-sum rebates as a cost to the supplier. It's a drain on margin. We're giving away some of our margin, and we're getting nothing in return. Whereas those three on the right-hand side, we can look at as an investment for the supplier. Yes, there's an outlay, but there's an expected return off the back of that outlay. Probably not surprising, as I mentioned earlier, that zero-sum rebates can inspire a lot of rebate haters. And we have touched upon, I've tried to be balanced talking about the other three. There are negative perceptions that come out of bad rebates in these three categories. But they at least have the potential to create rebate lovers. They have the potential to deliver that mutual benefit that we talked about at the top in my ideal world of rebates, making them a much more strategic tool to be used between trading partners. So what am I recommending? Well, what's the point of all of this? Well, I really do recommend taking a step back from your trading and looking at the rebates that you deal with, whether you're on the buy side or the sell side, categorizing your rebates, seeing which of these camps they fall into, and then gaining a better understanding of the types of perceptions that might flow from them, positive or negative. One word of caution with this. As an accountant, I was always taught to focus on substance over form. It is possible that something in its written form that looks like an incentive rebate, in reality, is actually a zero sum. Think of a scenario where we have what appears to be a target rebate, buy 1,000 units, get 2%. Well, if that customer is going to do 5,000 units, 5 times the target, every year without breaking a sweat, is that really an incentive? Are they earning that rebate? Particularly if the supplier feels that they can't take it away or increase the target band, we're probably dealing with a zero sum there. So just be careful of that substance over form when making that assessment. Now, I appreciate that this has all been quite high level, quite theoretical to this point. So I just wanted to close by grounding this into a real life example. This is a real piece of work that we did in the advisory team at Enable, helping one of our clients to redefine rebates. And in particular, this one falls into our third category of rebates, the incentives. So, the client approached us and said, we've been negotiating hard with this supplier, and we've just hit a bit of a brick wall. We can't offer them the volume that they want to offer us a better deal, and we've explored other avenues, and we haven't really got anywhere in terms of improving that deal. We said, okay, well, we'll have a look at your data, and when we did, this is what we found. This was their average ordering profile over the course of a typical month. And you see there in the first half of the month that there's not much activity, not many orders being placed. In the second half of the month, it really ramps up. And there was no real operational reason for this. It was kind of habitual. They had month-end stock targets based on the budget, And so they'd buy more in the second half of the month to make sure they landed where they needed to be. And they ended up with this profile, this ratio of first half of the month to second half of the month, 30-70. And it turns out, when we spoke to their operational teams, that their supplier hated this, and they'd made this fact known already. In the first half of the month, when not many orders were coming in, they were operationally inefficient because they had staff sitting idle, not busy enough to keep them all busy. In the second half of the month, that flipped around. Too much work, too many orders coming in. They were having to pay agency staff and overtime in order to satisfy that. So this seemed like a clear opportunity, an opportunity to redefine rebates in this business and introduce something new. So what we helped our client to propose to their supplier was a rebate that we've got there towards the bottom of the screen. If they can, in any given month, address their ordering profile to the point where it was no greater than 45-55 in favor of the first half of the month, then a rebate would be payable. And this supplier jumped at that opportunity to pay the rebate. And I'm pleased to say that since the rebate has been introduced, since the agreement was signed off, this rebate has been earned and paid for every month since. And this is the mutual benefit we're talking about. The supplier is happy to enjoy the additional efficiencies of this ordering, but they needed to provide the incentive to the customer in the form of a rebate in order to get them there. Now, I'm not suggesting that this is a solution that will be relevant to all businesses. This challenge won't necessarily exist, and therefore this won't be the right solution. But what I think it does highlight is that when we think outside of the box, there are different solutions out there, different types of rebates that might be there staring back at us that we can employ to improve our trading relationships and find some benefits for both of us. Now, it wasn't the case in this particular scenario, but thinking of all that uncertainty, volatility that we've heard about today, I do wonder if this is a good solution to that. Lots of businesses in their buying are now multi-sourcing. It's too risky just to buy everything from a single supplier. And so they're spreading that risk. But when you spread your risk, you also spread your leverage. And so in the face of reducing volumes, maybe we're expecting that our deals with our suppliers might get worse. Perhaps something like this, not talking about volume, but talking about consistency, is an opportunity to claw back some of that volume that has been taken through these volatile times. Just an idea. Hopefully it resonates with some of you. And so, the clock has turned yellow, so I'm running out of time. So, in summary, what have we found? We found that rebates, in my opinion, and I hope you agree, need to adapt in this changing world that we've been talking about. The rebates that are delivering us value today won't necessarily continue to deliver that value into the future. So we need to be nimble, we need to be agile and prepared to change. We've learned also that not everyone loves rebates. Keith, for example, and most people in the room have good reasons why they don't love every rebate entirely. And that's fine. It's perfectly justified, perfectly understandable. But we need to recognize that. We need to understand why not everyone loves rebates so that we can take them on the journey with us. We've also learned that good rebates are mutually beneficial, and there's different ways that we can achieve that mutual benefit with a rebate. And lastly, we found that when we're redefining rebates, if we really want to push rebates forward and get the success and the value that we're looking for, prioritizing them as an investment for a supplier over a cost is the way forward. Thank you all for your attention. Really enjoyed speaking to you today. Enjoy the rest of your day.